The Torah that we read on Rosh Hashannah focuses largely on the women's stories. Why is that? And how is the shofar connected to these women? Perhaps it's because their stories help us to see God as our mother, with the qualities of maternal compassion, unconditional love, and ever-flowing possibility of forgiveness, rather than God as judge, or maybe in addition to God as judge. It's not only what we read, but it's also the words we say that have a specific purpose. We chant the 13 attributes of God. These words were taught to Moses after the story of the golden calf, a recipe that was created by Hashem for us to chant when we need divine forgiveness. The Holy One, in her infinite wisdom, gifted us with this magical key to open the heart of the divine. One of the 13 attributes of God that we chant throughout the days of awe is El Rachum, the compassionate one. The Hebrew root for this name is Rechem, meaning womb, which also gives us the words mercy, love, and compassion. Rachamim, mercy, has been translated by some as wombliness, reflecting maternal attributes. Each of the stories we read offers us a path to connection with the Holy One, each one different and unique. Tomorrow we will read about Sarah, Imenu, and Hagar with the Haftarah story of Hannah, which Rabbi Sue will illuminate for us. On Friday, we'll read the story of the binding of Isaac and the repercussions for Sarah. And the Haftarah is about Rachel's tears. These mothers all cry out to God, each in her own way. The Midrashic stories that we read try to illuminate that which is not clearly defined in the Torah. When Isaac was bound on the altar on Rosh Hashannah, Midrash tells us that that day, Sarah, his mother, heard and wailed. Therefore, the text says, "It shall be a day of truah for you, to remember the cry of Sarah, our mother." Truah is one of the shofar calls. The Mishnah invokes maternal anguish as one interpretation of the sound of the shofar. I can deeply relate to Sarah's wailings, contemplating what could have happened to her beloved son if Abraham had not been stopped. When I was 5 months pregnant, I went to the hospital to have an amnio test to be sure that my baby was healthy. It began with an ultrasound to determine the placement of the baby so that they could insert this long needle into my womb to extract a small amount of amniotic fluid. As the tech was doing the ultrasound, he casually noted that there seemed to be too much liquid on the brain. A primordial wail erupted from deep inside me. Just thinking about it brings tears to this day. The staff went into a frenzied chaos until finally someone ran to bring a social worker to support me and help me to calm down so they could insert the needle. Baruch Hashem, it took 5 weeks for me to get that news that our baby was okay. But that wail, I believe, was like Sarah's wail. These women cried out to God for compassion, essentially to open God's heart to their pleas. Rabbi Tali Adler teaches about a midrash that compares the sound of the shofar to a woman who has miscarried several times. She became pregnant again and sat upon the birthing stool. When the baby exits her body, she refuses to take him to her breast, lest he was stillborn. As it says, "Let me not see the child's death." We'll be reading that tomorrow. However, when the baby began to cry and she realized he was a living child, her heart immediately opened in love and compassion. Imagine that each year on the day of the world's birth, the Holy One sits upon her throne and does not pay heed to us until she hears the blast of the shofar. Immediately upon hearing the wails of the shofar, she opens her heart and has mercy for us, her children. Our holy mothers teach us about our connection to Hashem. We read the story of Hannah, who prayed so fervently to be able to birth a child that Eli thought she was drunk. Yes, she eventually became a role model for personal prayer back in Talmudic times. In the book of Jeremiah, we read, Rachel is weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted. In the Midrash and the Talmud, Rachel is said to have wept for her children, her people, during the time of the Babylonian exile. Rachel's tears symbolize her deep maternal compassion for the Jewish people, particularly during times of suffering. Her tears are considered so powerful that God, moved by her compassion, assures her that her children will return from exile. In the Midrash of Echa Rabbah that we read on Tisha B'Av, God calls on the patriarchs to cry and plead for mercy for the Jews caught in the destruction of the temple. But none of them succeed until Rachel steps in. Rachel's maternal tears and relational stance move God in a way that no one else can, perhaps because Rachel is relating to God as mother to mother. Mara Benjamin paints a picture of maternal love and describes the way in which God's love for us has maternal qualities. From her book, The Obligated Self, she writes, maternal love, like divine love, is erotic insofar as it is responsive to particular children's specific needs and unique selfhood. The love that is nurturing and caring for one's child is altered and attuned to that specific self, to a unique body and temperament. God's love for God's people is maternal love amplified, dynamic, volatile, and keenly attentive. In the Babylonian Talmud for Rosh Hashannah, we read about the mother of Sisera. Through the window she peered. Sisera's mother wailed. Reb David recently shared this midrashic story. In the book of Judges, Sisera was defeated in a battle by Devorah and Barak and killed by Yael. Yet the 100 calls of the shofar are said to be the cries of Sisera's mother when she learned that her son was dead. Although she is considered depraved herself, nevertheless, her cries represent the tears of any mother for her child. Hundreds of years later, her offspring was Rabbi Akiva. This is suggestive of universal maternal love having the power to bring good even from evil. Finally, we come to the story of Hagar, who actually names God. When Hagar, who's banished to the desert with her son Ishmael, cannot find water and believes her son to be dying, an angel of God appears to open her eyes so that she can see the water and save her son. At that moment, she names God El Roi, the one who sees me. What a powerful experience to feel seen by God, just as any child yearns to be seen by her mother. Rabbi Aviva Richman writes, the act of naming is actually what a parent does for a child. A name expresses a vision for what someone is or could become, and also contains an element of expectation for what a person should strive to be. When Hagar invents the name El Roi, she is not only articulating gratitude for this divine encounter, but also calling on God to live up to this name in an ongoing way, seeing and caring for vulnerable people. These teachings have changed the way that I see Rosh Hashanah this year. The experiences of our foremothers invite us to see God as our mother, who responds to our cries and shows us compassion as her children. This year, the wailing of Israeli mothers in Israel is ever present for me. I hear their cries from deep within for their murdered children and for their hostage children who are still held in Gaza. I imagine their cries joining together to form a giant shofar that has been wailing for almost a year now. Tomorrow, when we hear the 100 wails of the shofar, may we all imagine our own prayers and tears joining with theirs to draw down divine love and compassion for us and for all of Israel. And may we come even closer to Hashem this year. Shana Tova.